And I haven't had a chance to write everything out. I just wrote it up on the chalkboard here, and I'd like to add some more things. My theory is this whole thing is coming apart at the seams. That this thing is at its end. Let's use World War II as an example. What year did FDR was he voted in? Was it 33 or 31 or 33?
31, and took over in 30. No. Would have been 32.
That was right. He took over in 33.
He took over in 33. Yeah.
Okay. So when did things overseas start to heat up? 39, really.
Mm-hmm.
39
is
slightly
before that.
Yeah, 39 is when it really started. And just do me a favor.
War broke out in 39.
Right. Do me a favor. Just look at the years here. He got into 33. Compare that to 2008. He's elected for a second term. After he's elected for a second term, FDR, things start to fall apart on him. This is when the court overturns his strengthening of the unions. It's when the courts start to go against him, and the people start to say, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't working." This is when his own administration starts to turn on him. This is when his Secretary of Treasury comes out and says, "We've tried this; it doesn't work." That was in 37 or 38, I believe. Then global war starts to break out. And we start to now wake up and say, wait a minute. If you believe books like The Forging of America or America's Forge, it shows there that finally Winston Churchill wakes FDR up in about 1940. Now, I don't think that FDR hated America by any stretch of the imagination. I just think he was misguided, and he thought that it was time for a new era of things, a progressive era. I do believe this president does not like us too much. He's not a fan of the United States of America. He's not a fan of the Constitution. He's not a fan of the founders. He thinks that he can make it better. And in his arrogance, he and his buddies all in the universities all over will do exactly that. Well, just like with FDR, I think things are falling apart. And if you look at, for instance, the economy, when the American people, if anyone ever tells them this, and there's going to come a time where everybody's going to know this, 75% of all jobs that have been created in the last year are part-time. 75% of all jobs. Now, if you want to look at this, Stu, give me the historic look at this, from The Wonderful World of Stu. With the 0%, 4%.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at year after year after year. The typical way this happens is the part-time jobs and full-time jobs are about equal. They're the ratio between them is right around even. And this year the ratio is more like 4-to-1 part-time jobs to full-time jobs. That's out of nowhere. That's not something that happens often at all, and it's obvious what's going on. It's because of this president's healthcare program and the fact that people are trying to avoid these huge expenditures where they're being forced into offering people who are at the beginning of their careers and are young these hefty sums of money for healthcare that normally they wouldn't have had to have given them.
So it takes a while to fundamentally transform a nation. And remember, the last time this was tried was with FDR. And the American people are willing to try new things because they're like, I don't understand why it doesn't work. This time, however, I believe things are different. This time, we have exposed the progressives for what they really are and didn't let them get away with it in the cover of darkness. And I think there was enough people where it didn't happen last time. There's enough people in the country that stood up against the GOP where that wasn't happening last time. They weren't talking about throwing all of the GOP out and starting something new, starting a constitutional party, at least that I'm aware of. Have you ever heard that piece of history? I haven't. And we've been pretty deep in the FDR administration, so there was nobody that was saying that. And that's the difference this time. So now the economy is starting to fray. 75% of all jobs are part-time that were created this year. Healthcare is over. By the way, I'm explaining what I think this whole thing is in the Middle East. Healthcare is over. What is the latest, universal poll on universal healthcare? What's the latest poll?
I know it's over 50% opposition. It's at its highest levels to want to repeal, and it's a 3-to-1 ratio now of people who think this healthcare program will hurt them rather than help them.
Okay, 3-to-1, which means there's no way to win this one. There's just no way to win this one. You can win it if you have fervent support out in the communities, but it's going to take a grassroots campaign. You have to have fervent support. Okay, well, you don't have that. As we found out this weekend, where was that? In Virginia? Where they had the, I've got it here in my paperwork someplace. I will explain it later, but someplace out back east, they had the Organizing for America people put together this big, huge push for universal health care. And they said, we're all going to work the phones and everybody come down. Well, nobody showed up. One supporter showed up. I think it's up on the Blaze with a picture, and it's hysterical. One. And they felt really awkward and stupid, and they left within 20 minutes. There's nobody coming because everybody feels duped. Do you remember how we felt? Let's forget about FDR for a second. Do you remember how you felt after really backing George W. Bush and really walking through a wall of fire for that guy? Do you remember how you started to feel around 06, 07? You're like, I don't think this is good. I think we've been lied to. Now, I contend that that's the way the Democrats are. That if you start to say, look, this isn't about the Republicans. This is about right and wrong, and we hate the Republicans too, I think you're going to start peeling off a lot of Democrats as well. Because Democrats are just like you were under George W. Bush. There was a lot of stuff I didn't like, and I remember getting a lot of calls from a lot of people in this audience defending George W. Bush when I was saying, no, guys, I think there's something wrong here. And I couldn't figure it out what it was, but I knew something was wrong. It's before we knew what progressives were. Healthcare is over. That is the centerpiece. If you don't have healthcare, that weakens the IRS and everything else that he has done. The dollar and the debt, the Fed is completely out of options. There's nothing left now. There's no gas in the tank. You now have to pretty much come out and say, all we're doing is printing money. Because there's no rhyme or reason for it anymore. There's no, everybody knows. Where before people thought, well, it might work. There's nobody in the know. There's nobody at the higher levels that think this is going to work anymore. They all know what road we're on. So that jig is up. When you come to politics, his approval rating not getting any better. The IRS, the NSA scandal, they cannot allow the opposition to grow anymore on that. The IRS, I really believe, for the first time in my life, that if the right and the common sense left get together, you could abolish the IRS. For the first time in my lifetime, I believe we have a uniting principle that goes across party lines. You could abolish the IRS.
What is this common sense left you speak of?
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay. The same thing with the NSA. The NSA could go away for the first time in my lifetime because people are knowing that this isn't good. What they're doing isn't good. And the progressives in the GOP, for the first time since Theodore Roosevelt, are being exposed, uncovered. And when you have Newt Gingrich come out and declare himself this weekend a neocon, and he knows what a neocon means. A neocon does not mean what people think it means. What a neocon literally means is somebody who is a big government, progressive, kind of liberal, that also believes in giant military excursions overseas. A neocon is a progressive in the Republican Party. Neocon really is Theodore Roosevelt. Somebody who believes in, well, I'm a conservative, but I believe in a gigantic government. He's a progressive. So he came out and admitted that he is a neocon. His words, he knows exactly what that means. And he then said, and military intervention doesn't work. So if you have a big government progressive that is also saying, you know what, the John McCains of the world, I think they were misguided. I think they're wrong. You know that they are afraid. The Newt Gingriches of the world are afraid. You also have John McCain, I believe, on the edge of bolting from the GOP. You want to get rid of John McCain, you don't have to vote him out of office. You'll get rid of John McCain very quickly, and here's how. If you stand up and you support Ted Cruz, and they vote against a continuing resolution with the health care package in it, and they say we're not going to pass anything that has health care in it, if that passes, you will chase people like John McCain out. You're within 30 days, 45 days, of actually chasing that guy out of office. He'll leave. He will become an independent. He'll do a Lieberman.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of those things are happening here in the United States. Then you have the Muslim Brotherhood. This is really important. They're exposed here. People are starting to go, wait a minute. What's going on with the Muslim Brotherhood? What's all this all about? And they are over in the Middle East. We picked the wrong horse. Who would have seen that one coming? And so they are over in the Middle East. So that thing is bubbling over. And then you're at the point now where the proxy war is about to be discovered. And when I say proxy war, we have been in a proxy war with Iran and Russia for a while now. We have picked sides, and we have picked the side against Russia. I believe against China as well, although I don't believe they're involved in this proxy war. They're just going to be there to hold, they're just going to be there to buy everything up after it's all over. But Russia has picked Iran. We have picked the Muslim Brotherhood and Libya and Egypt. And we are going in and we're fighting. It's the United States versus Russia. This is what all of us who are my age grew up worried about. This is it. It's been a Cold War. It's been a proxy war. It's been one where nobody really understands it yet. But I think you're about to. I think this whole thing in the Middle East is the beginning of the end of the proxy war and the covert war. You're now going to see an openly hot war, I fear, and the beginning of World War III, which changes everything. Remember, if you look at 33, if you consider 3308, that makes 1939 when war started all over the world, 2014. We're on the same timeline. Same timeline. This doesn't work very long. And so progressives, just like Woodrow Wilson, and just like FDR, what their policies do is stir up all kinds of trouble. And so the world goes into war, but they also need war to help cover what they've done. Here is the... And I haven't had a chance to write everything out. I just wrote it up on the chalkboard here, and I'd like to add some more things. My theory is this whole thing is coming apart at the seams. That this thing is at its end. Let's use World War II as an example. What year did FDR was he voted in? Was it 33 or 31 or 33?
31, and took over in 30. No. Would have been 32.
That was
right. He took over in 33.
He took over in 33. Yeah.
Okay. So when did things overseas start to heat up? 39, really.
Mm-hmm.
39 is
slightly before that.
Yeah, 39 is when it really started. And just do me a favor.
War broke out in 39.
Right. Do me a favor. Just look at the years here. He got into 33. Compare that to 2008. He's elected for a second term. After he's elected for a second term, FDR, things start to fall apart on him. This is when the court overturns his strengthening of the unions. It's when the courts start to go against him, and the people start to say, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't working." This is when his own administration starts to turn on him. This is when his Secretary of Treasury comes out and says, "We've tried this; it doesn't work." That was in 37 or 38, I believe. Then global war starts to break out. And we start to now wake up and say, wait a minute. If you believe books like The Forging of America or America's Forge, it is a